That's this Elizabeth Warren. I call her Goofy. She is, no, Goofy. She gets less done than anybody in the United States Senate. She gets nothing done, nothing passed. She's got a big mouth, and that's about it.
Well, Donald Trump firing back at Senator Elizabeth Warren for claiming he profited from the housing crisis. The war of words all began when Warren said this.
Donald Trump was drooling over the idea of a housing meltdown because it meant he could buy up more property on the cheap. What kind of a man does that? A man who will never be president of the United States.
But wait a second. Warren's hometown paper, the Boston Herald, reported that she profited big from flipping houses many times. So, is this liberal hypocrisy through the roof? Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Bolling. Welcome to Cashin In. Our Cashin In crew this week: Juan Williams, Lisa Booth, and Rick Grinnell. Welcome, everybody. Now, Rick, Senator Warren pretending to be holier than thou when it comes to housing. She made money too the same way that he did.
Yeah, totally. Look, both Donald Trump and Elizabeth Warren are landlords to people who can't afford housing. And that makes them exactly the same. The difference is that Elizabeth Warren has built a career off manipulating the free market. If she wants to talk about why we've had a housing meltdown, giving people loans, giving people houses, giving people $15 an hour jobs when they're not qualified for that is what's wrong. She has built this whole premise, this liberal premise around manipulating the free market in order to give stuff away to people for free, and that creates the middle class having to pay a lot more money. So if she wants to talk about these issues, she's going down a rabbit hole.
Let me go to Juan. So Elizabeth Warren, apparently she and her husband flipped many houses, and now she takes shots at Donald Trump for basically wanting to do the same thing, only on a bigger scale, a bigger real estate buy than a house.
This is so ridiculous to me. We are talking about Donald Trump taking advantage on a large scale of a tragedy, an economic tragedy in our nation.
And so she only took advantage on a small scale?
Eric,
wait, she did the same thing, though,
no,
on a smaller scale.
I insist on finishing.
Okay.
She was doing something for her family members back in the 1990s, early 1990s, 93. Members of her family, she had some money, and she was helping them to get their houses in order. But somehow Trump now wants to equate that with his intervention in markets, huge economic housing markets. He said he wanted to see them go bust so that he, as a businessman, could buy low and sell high.
But that's what you do as a businessman, Juan. You try and buy low and sell high. You want real estate price. If you're a real estate developer, you want real estate prices to go.
In America, Eric.
You want real estate prices to go down so you can buy it cheap, develop, and make a profit. Profit's not a dirty word.
You don't want to profit on the
suffering
of people being pushed out of their houses?
Apparently, profit's not a dirty word to Senator Elizabeth Warren and her family. Take a look at these houses. Here's the first one. Check this one out. She made 383% profit, Juan. Profit. That's fantastic. And how about this one? She made 56% profit, Juan. She made a profit. If she's taking shots at Donald Trump for making a profit, yet she did the same thing.
Look at the date on the screen. 1993.
Who cares when it was? It doesn't matter.
Not 2008, 2009.
It doesn't matter when it happened. They did the same thing. Trump was trying to do it on a bigger scale than Elizabeth Warren.
It matters to me and to you if you owned a house and you saw the housing market implode and suddenly your value went out the door.
It was the same thing. It was a real estate market that was weakening. They were both looking to buy cheap and sell high.
In the 1990s, the real estate market was fine.
I have to get Senator Warren's. We asked her for a statement, and they issued us this statement. Quote, Senator Warren and her husband, Bruce, are fortunate to be in a position where they've been able to help relatives buy their homes and, in some cases, make a living by fixing up houses and managing rental properties. Now, Lisa, that is a small scale of what Donald Trump is trying to do. On a larger scale, buy real estate, develop it, and sell it.
Right, and it looks like Juan is taking part in the same liberal hypocrisy that we're seeing from Elizabeth Warren and also Hillary Clinton here. Look, both Donald Trump and Elizabeth Warren saw an opportunity in the market and took advantage of it. That's smart business practices and good for Elizabeth Warren. But shame on her for trying to take those opportunities away from everyday Americans by pushing socialist policies here. But she's not just a hypocrite. She's also a liar. This is the same woman that lied about her heritage to 3 different employers to get the job. And Hillary Clinton's also a hypocrite here because Bill Clinton was the one that rewrote the rules to the Community Reinvestment Act, which is largely attributed
this is a great
to being
point.
part of the housing crisis.
Great point. I'm going to get to Juan in 1 second, but Rick, Lisa points out the Community Reinvestment Act was reformed under President Clinton, and I remember this distinctly. They said they wanted to get everyone with a home. They wanted people who maybe not could afford a home to get homes, and that is why the real estate bubble inflated and burst, and Elizabeth Warren made money on it, Donald Trump made money on it.
Look, the people that Elizabeth Warren, that live in Elizabeth Warren's homes, that she is the landlord of, those people cannot afford homes because the market has been manipulated by Elizabeth Warren's policies. Let me give you one example. They rush to push local governments into demanding that developers build below market homes. And what that means is that in exchange for a permit, a developer has to add a whole bunch of money to the home price for the middle class simply because there is a politician like Elizabeth Warren saying in order to get that permit, you must give people below market homes they cannot afford to be in. That is a manipulation of the market. And giving people free stuff is a true problem
Rick, you know
of the
what
market.
the greatest manipulation of the market, Juan, was in 1993, 94, 95 when President Clinton reformed the Community Reinvestment Act and got people with no loans, no job, no documents. You got your loan anyway. You got your house, and that's what caused the bubble.
You forget that this extends from Democrats to Republican administrations. Everybody wants our American people to believe in the American dream and to get a house. People you know what? It's good for Americans to have investment in their communities to own property. What's going on with Elizabeth Warren helping out her relatives and friends in the early 90s is wholly different than what's going on in the early 2000s, 2007, and 8 and 9 when we have a recession and people like Trump are profiting on the backs of people who are trying to buy a house.
There are liberals that profited on that as well. She's pointing a finger at Donald Trump, but some of the biggest liberal supporters made a ton of money on that housing collapse. That was perpetrated under Democrats. It was started, inflated, and it burst in 07 under Republicans.
I'll give you that. Okay, if you're saying the Community Investment Act, which I think is a good thing, was started under President Clinton, you are right, Eric. But it's also continued under President Bush. And the idea was not to give money in the pockets of people like Donald Trump. It was to try to help the little guy.
But it failed. Failed, Juan. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, there's a big difference here, though, because Donald Trump is being unapologetic about seeing an opportunity in the marketplace and taking advantage of it. That's what a smart business person does. But the irony
Lisa,
here,
you gotta have a heart.
Give me
Lisa,
a second,
have a heart. You can't exploit the little guy.
Juan, stop. Oh, please. You're talking about, look, there's culpability. There's plenty of culpability to go around to both Democrats and Republicans. But the problem here, Juan, is that Elizabeth Warren is trying to be a hypocrite. Hillary Clinton is being a hypocrite as well because they're trying to criticize Donald Trump when both Bill Clinton had a handprint in this.
I'm going to give Juan last word. But Juan, when you said you have to have a heart and you're all for the Community Reinvestment Act, you know what the problem with that theory is? Yeah, that would be great in liberal la-la land. The problem is when the bubble burst and the housing market collapsed, guess who picked up the tab? Not the little guy. The American taxpayer picked up the tab to the tune of $1 trillion, Juan, and that's the problem with the whole system.
And guess who profited, Eric? It was the Donald Trumps of the world who said,
I'm
just
George
a businessman. I don't care about
other,
devastating your community.
Please.
I don't care about grandma losing her house.
I'll bet you Clinton profited on it, too, somehow. I'll figure it out next week.
But I know that Donald Trump profited.
All right, we're going to leave it right there.
We know Elizabeth Warren did, too.
We got to leave right there. Coming up, President Obama overseas taking another shot at Donald Trump. Now, Lisa, Trump says he's glad if he's rattling world leaders. Maybe this is why people like him.
Right, exactly. And shame on President Obama for doing this while overseas and setting that precedent. And also for him to talk about, I mean, look, this is the guy who, after the Brussels attack, which is the second worst attack since World War II, I believe, He proceeded to do the wave with a communist dictator and dance the tango. So I really don't think that President Obama has a lot of room to talk. And this is also the guy that draws red lines and fails to follow through. So I don't think he's exactly sending a strong message to other world leaders or is respected here either.
Okay, Juan, you know who didn't rattle world leaders? President Obama.
Oh, yeah, I don't think he did.
And that's a good thing? Is that good?
Oh, I think it's very, look, we have tried to calm down the world, end 2 wars. We're trying our best. But I must say, I can't agree with President Obama more. You look at things like bond markets. We're on Cashin in today. Who says, oh, you know, I may not respect the value of U.S. bonds? Imagine the impact on world financial markets from that kind of talk. Imagine the impact on saying, oh, I'm going to impose tariffs. I'm going to stop free trade in the world. My God, what would that do to our global economy? Imagine the impact of a guy who says 1 minute, oh, yeah, you know, I don't think we should raise minimum wage. And then the other day says, oh, maybe we should raise minimum wage in some states, but not others. Right. What is his policy?
Well, you know what, Rick? You know what I'd like for a change? I'd like the mullahs in Iran to be a little bit rattled. Call me crazy. Or I'd like North Korea to be a little bit rattled. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. But first, we need to correct Juan. Trump is not against free trade. And that statement is absolutely wrong. But let me make something very clear.
But what
Russia
did he say,
grabbed
Rick?
Crimea. Let me continue on. Russia grabbed Crimea. The Chinese have grabbed the South China Sea. Iran has a deal, and Cuba now has a comfort down below the United States. These leaders need to be rattled, Juan. They haven't been rattled. And so when I hear that world leaders are nervous to negotiate with Donald Trump, I say hear, hear, because that's exactly what we've needed for a very long time. We've been walked on. We've had foreign policy that's been driven by Ben Rhodes, a creative writing student. And if we have a president who's going to stand up and say, let's negotiate from a position of strength, I think most Americans are going to respond just like they have responded here. Donald Trump is rattling the domestic politicians and the international
Let me throw another one at you,
politicians.
Juan. President Obama negotiated, first round, I think it was a horrible deal, and he also negotiated a deal with Cuba. I'm all for the dealing with Cuba, except he got nothing for it. He gave everything, got nothing.
Well, let me just say, in response to Rick, and I'm going to come to you in a second, Eric, but when you talk about getting the U.S. out of NATO, you are rattling, Rick, not our enemies, you're rattling our friends.
He didn't say that. He didn't say U.S. getting out of NATO.
When you say, oh, take away the nuclear umbrella in Asia from Japan and South Korea and start talking to North Korea, you know, Rick, you say he didn't say these things. Do you think I'm just making it up?
No, I think that you're exaggerating his position, you're making his position a wrong position. He didn't say that he would give Japan and South Korea a nuclear weapon. He didn't take away that umbrella.
Hang on to you two guys.
That's what I just said.
Hold on. No, he just wanted other people to pay a little bit more, Juan. That's all he said. Go ahead, Lisa, your final thought on the block.
No, I think we're just saying, there's a lot of liberal hypocrisy going on here because President Obama, as I mentioned, talks about a cavalier attitude, but he's the one with the cavalier attitude. This is a guy that won't even name our enemy, won't even call Islamic extremism what it is, radical Islamic extremism. This is a guy who says he doesn't even have a plan to address ISIS. There's a weakness from President Obama, and Donald Trump is filling the vacuum that he has created.
Got to leave it right there. Coming up nearly a year after the funding for not following federal immigration laws.
Yes, absolutely. We should cut funding to a city that decides to shield an illegal immigrant who had 7 felony convictions, deported 5 times, who then went on to kill a young woman who had the rest of her life ahead of them because of this policy. Yes.
Juan, now there's some 3 dozen or so sanctuary cities in the country. That would be quite a bit of funding that would be cut off. But listen, why not uphold the federal law?
Well, in fact, what you see is that, Eric, you have won this conversation because San Francisco has changed the law so that anyone who's under suspicion, been convicted, is now going to have their status communicated to the federal government so that you can't have a repeat of what happened in the Kate Steinle case. So, Eric, I think you should be celebrating that San Francisco is listening to Cashin in.
I think they need something like 7 felony convictions in order for them to communicate.
No, they have to have convictions.
Right.
Not 7. They have just that they have convictions and that their status is in question. There will now be communication between the local government and the federal government.
How about we just uphold the law? If illegal immigrants are here illegally, we can deport them, Rick.
Well, that hurts.
Yeah,
that hurts.
Let's be honest. Let's be very honest with what a sanctuary city is. It's an announcement by politicians that people don't have to follow the law, and that law enforcement officials who try to pursue the law will be found, in violation of the politician's promise. If you don't know the name Kamala Harris, get to know it. She's our Attorney General here in California. She's running for the Senate, and she has created not only a sanctuary city in San Francisco, but a sanctuary state in all of California. It's a huge problem
ask Juan,
when politicians ignore laws.
We don't have a lot of time, Juan, but what if a city decides they want to be a sanctuary city for, I don't know, heroin? What's the difference?
Well, that would be terrible. You and I would agree. Eric, you and I would shake hands. But the thing is, you got to remember, you don't want immigrants, and especially legal immigrants, not talking to the police, fearing that somehow they're going to be thrown out because of that, and therefore allowing themselves to be abused, exploited. So that's why you have sanctuary cities. You say, you know what, talk to the cops. We want safety in America.
I don't know. Lisa, very quick, last thought on this. What's the difference with what they're creating a sanctuary for? If it's illegal, it's illegal.
Right, and it just flies in the face of public safety and common sense. So, yes, we should cut funding. And that's not the only incident. There was a 2008 incident where a man and his sons were killed as well by an illegal immigrant in San Francisco.
I got to go right now. Coming up, how the left's touchy-feely treatment of our children has finally gone too far.